when you are carrying somebody, even if they aren't sick to begin with, they often get jostled around in the litter a lot. So sometimes people just get sick because they're being jostled. So far to date, I have been off of the litter all but one time. And the one time I was on the litter, I was at the feet. I was so lucky. I'm doing good. This is good for me because it's definitely not my thing.
You haven't been on a search, have you?
I haven't. We got called off.
Oh yeah.
I left work to go to that search and
got Warren.
Got to the parking lot and said, "Oh, you can go back home."
Interesting. Yeah, it happens. They come in spurts.
Yeah.
Huh.
How does it work to progress within a search and rescue team? Do you have to go on a certain number of missions before you get called in for a search, or do you have to do a certain number of missions before you get called in for a winter carry, or how does that all work?
You got to be a guy.
That's not even true.
Stop.
Nobody believes that.
The whole purpose of this episode is to dispel that idiocy.
Thank you, Mike.
You got to be a rugged guy.
Cut this out. You got to edit this out. I'm sorry,
edit.
Jen and Lindsay.
I'm not scared.
He's had too much wine.
Broadcasting from the Woodpecker Studio in the great state of New Hampshire, welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stump.
I look fuzzy?
Hopefully it's not the internet.
Could be the internet connection.
Yeah, I'm recording now.
All right, you guys are looking clear here. So the Woodpecker Studio, for the listeners, like Stomp has this whole setup in the Woodpecker Studio where he's got a spotlight on himself, but our guests are like invisible. They're like sitting in the dark.
I don't have a spotlight.
Stomp's the main character.
I don't have a spotlight on myself. Hold on a minute. Watch this. Ready? I come prepared. Look at this. Oh,
there we
yeah. Look at that. Now I'm like,
what did you just do?
I can't tell you. It's a secret.
He moved the spotlight.
It's an LED spotlight. Hey, that works.
That works.
Yeah.
It looks good. All right. Well, Stomp, I've been thinking about Native Americans lately.
Really? Tell me more.
Yeah, there's been some controversy. So in my town, our mascot, our sports team mascot is the Indians, and they canceled the Indians.
I heard this.
So there was, the typical talk when this stuff happens is people are like, well, what's next? Because we have this river in our town which is called the Powwow River, and I think we covered this before, where there's a law where they're trying to change the names of some place names that they find offensive. So it just got me thinking about Native Americans in general, and just sort of went down this rabbit hole around what the hell were they doing here before the white man ended up showing up and ruining their world. Right. So as I was thinking about this, there was a thread that popped up on the Forgotten New Hampshire site about, and we're going to talk about this later in the show, but those green plaques that are in New Hampshire. There's a plaque that's I think it must be in Crawford Notch, about Darby Field, the first guy to climb the first white man to climb Mount Washington.
Yep.
You know who this guy is, right?
I've heard the name. Was he in one of those books? I think I might have read about him, like Not Without Peril or something.
Well, he's credited as being the first person to ascend Mount Washington, but when somebody had posted this roadside sign in this Facebook group and said, like, this is the guy and this is an interesting story, everybody got all ticked off because they were basically like, Native Americans have climbed that mountain before him, and I guess he had a couple of guides that were Native Americans, so everybody was fighting back and forth over whether or not Darby Field was the first person to climb Mount Washington, or whether or not it was likely that Native Americans had climbed it before. So the question I want to ask you, and Jen and Lindsay, you can jump in on this too if you have an opinion. Do you think that it's likely that Native Americans climbed Mount Washington before this guy Darby Field climbed?
I would think, yeah.
I don't see why not.
Right.
Totally plausible.
Yeah, and I think it's plausible as well, but let me play the devil's advocate for a second. So I did a little bit of research. So I had a little bit of time on my hands this weekend because my wife's in Florida, and I was like trying to figure out, I'm like, how many Native Americans were in New England back in the 1600s or the 1500s? And there's no way for them to know, but like I came up with a couple of numbers. Like there was an estimate of 70,000 in New England, and then there was another estimate of around 100,000. So assuming like even if it's 100,000, New England is 70,000 square miles. So that basically means that there's maybe one person per square mile in New England. And then as you really start digging into the numbers, you see that the Wampanoag tribe, which is like down the Cape in Rhode Island in that area, like they're estimating like 40,000. So then that leaves like 30,000 to 50,000 Native Americans in the rest of New England.
Yeah.
Right. So the Pennacook tribe is where basically they.
Can you tell Mike is a data crunch guy or what?
I do like crunching that stuff. So anyway, so the Pennacook tribe is the ones that were in sort of the New Hampshire. Now, when you look at these Native Americans, they traveled along the rivers. So they would travel along the sort of the deep, slower rivers like the Connecticut River, and then the Merrimack probably would be interesting. But I don't see why they would go past the mouth of the Merrimack or go up that high into like the Ammonoosuc and stuff like that, because those are basically shallow, fast-running rivers. So honestly, I think it's plausible that there was no Native Americans going up into that area. Like there just wasn't any people around.
Yeah, makes sense.
So we'll have to see, I guess, if the listeners want to chime in and give their opinions. But I also think about like how crazy it would have been to like bust through to get to the peaks of the presidentials back then.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I think they probably knew better, but I'm sure they did during the warmer months, perhaps.
Could be, but here's the other crazy thing that somebody brought up in the thread, and then I started to do some research. This guy Darby Field lived in like Durham, so he was basically like, essentially like if you put it in terms of the Game of Thrones, he was living at the wall. He was at the edge of civilization, and right. I think he was working like in the Great Bay in that area down there. So they probably were able to go up onto Agamenicus and those little peaks to see like the high peaks from far off, because you can see from the main coast, those peaks.
Yep.
And from the time that this guy climbed it, which was 1642, until the time that they really started settling into the Crawford Notch area, that was in 1812, which is when like Abel Crawford and that whole crew. So between 1642 and 1812, there's not a lot of records of anybody going up into that area at all. Because... Okay. So you get 150 years between the time that Darby Field climbs Mount Washington until they actually start opening up Crawford Notch. What the hell's going on during that time?
I think you have to do some more digging, but you're onto something.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Maybe they were just telling stories to each other about it instead of writing it all down at that point.
Could be. Good point. So anyway, that's the history lesson, Stomp.
I love it. It's usually at the end of the show. I feel like
you weren't that excited about it.
No, you know why? It's because I'm monitoring the internet right now. I'm in internet monitoring mode, and I'm just making sure everything's okay. That's all.
And we're like wrangling a cat back here. So
very important.
Daphne's the assistant executive producer is in the house at the moment, and she's all over them. In like 5 minutes, she'll be asleep behind you.
Right.
Do you want me to put her out for now?
She's lovely.
She's like kissing them and everything. She's amazing. But here's the story, Mike. I figured out the internet problem. It's very simple. I got the notification that the bill was due for the internet, and my wife is the one that usually pays it, and I never told her that I got the bill. So that's why we had no service. Can you believe that?
It's called automatic payment.
It shows you how we operate.
It's Mrs. Stomp's fault?
No. It's probably mine. It's mine.
Yeah.
I failed to...
Good answer. Correct answer.
Right. So, anyway, crisis averted. Yeah, like literally, I spent all last night ripping apart the router, the modem, reconfiguring it, putting new wires in.
You should have been ripping apart your checkbook.
Exactly. So, yeah, sure enough, the guy this morning's like, oh, you're past due by like 2 months. I'm like, what? So funny. Oh, well. Whoopsie.
All right, well, so I'm glad that Jen and Lindsay are enjoying the cat, but I heard a rumor that they don't really like cats and more dog people. I heard they're dog people.
Well,
That's what's in the notes here.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's kind of true.
That is
I mean,
kinda
we
true.
like cats, but
Yeah.
I became a cat person by accident.
By accident?
Well,
you were a dog person
yeah.
originally. Interesting. Huh.
The cat kind of just
Well,
squirmed her way in. And
have you always been
I've always had cats
and dogs?
and dogs.
Okay. Because I was under the impression you two were upset about the unequal representation of canines in the SLASR administrative staff.
Well, I mean, it was unequal. Benson was very upset about it.
right, Benson was probably the most upset.
Yep.
Do you remember Benson, Mike?
I don't remember Benson, though.
He was the dog that was posted on Insta on the story, the Basset Hound that wasn't too impressed with that Odin dog. Do you remember Odin?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he wasn't too impressed with Odin. But I don't think he's too impressed with much.
But that's not the other Basset Hound that's like the famous Basset
No.
Hound is Oscar, right?
No, but we want to meet Oscar.
Yeah. Matter of fact, we were messaging Oscar's owner to try to get him to come on to do a hiking with dogs segment, but I got to fall back up with him.
Oh,
He's like out west now.
yeah. We were following him. He's out west now.
Is he?
I think he lives out there, so I don't know.
Huh.
I did meet Oscar, and honestly, I was like fanboying out. I was so excited.
How about we do a remote? We'll do a remote with Oscar.
There you go.
Will that work?
Yes.
From his van life.
Well, so is there anything you want to cover with sponsors or coffee or any of that fun stuff?
Oh, yeah. We had a donation from Texofa, if I say that correctly. Texofa, which is a.k.a. Andy and Sandy, which is Andy Cannon, who came in and talked about the PT stuff last week, was it? Yeah. So, Andy, thank you very much. And he wanted me to pass on that if anybody's at Reckless, they can ask for Andy or Sandy, and they'll both come over and say hi and just say you're from the podcast listenership. One more plug for Nick Rouleau, friend of the show. Let's see if I can pull off another rhyme here. He does decks, additions, remodeling windows and doors, fully insured. He's right up here in the North Country. He's one of the best. 603-325-1661. And just as we mentioned, at Reckless Brewing, our sponsor, which is fantastic, where you'll enjoy the best food, craft beer, and fun just 15 minutes from Franconia Notch, many 4,000 footers, and less than 10 minutes from the Five Corners. Hey, you know what's funny? I'm wicked nervous that these two are sitting here watching me. I feel like I'm on stage. This is awful.
Like,
It's
we're
a
like
weird
being in the
setup.
back.
Backseat drivers.
like,
It is. It's
like they're critiquing me in their head going, God, he sucks. He's the worst.
It's not happening.
No. It's all in your head.
Yeah. So for the audience, just to reference, like Stomp's in front of them and they're sitting behind him. So, and then I feel like I'm at the head of the class, like the teacher, but I'm on video.
I feel like a New York taxi driver or something. Were you two going? South End? West Side?
Exactly.
Oh, that's my stop.
That'll be $100, please.
No tip for you.
All right. So you want me to do the show summary here, Stomp?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So tonight we are joined by our friends Jen and Lindsay. Say hello.
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 All right. So they're both active search and rescue team members in New Hampshire. So they're here to share their perspective on the rewards and challenges of being involved in search and rescue. We're excited to hear their stories about how they got involved in hiking, search and rescue, and outdoor adventures. And I also think we may break our all-time record for beers drank during an episode because they brought in a cooler full of beer. So could get wild
epic.
at Snomp's house at the Woodpecker Studio.
No, they're setting a standard here for guests.
Which is hysterical because I so
awesome.
seldom drink, but, you know,
Hey,
I was inspired.
Yeah. Well, it's the beer segment. You got to
Right?
represent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Couldn't be like, what are you drinking? Nothing.
Well, I made my husband stop at Case and Keg on the way over.
Is that the place with the soap? The soap and the beer?
It was,
No,
did they
I
have
got to
soap?
go there.
No, we joke about this one place that sells soap and beer
Oh.
in the same building. Like, what a weird combo. But I guess it works.
Guess if you get really sick and throw up all over yourself, you can clean up real well.
Yes, that's true. Hey, Stomp.
Yes, sir.
Can I finish?
Oh,
my
sorry.
show?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So we may also break. Oh no, I already read that part. This is falling apart, but it's fine. Later in the show, we will cover some recent search and rescue news, and we will catch up on our list of White Mountain history topics that we've been sitting on. I actually already covered one. So I'm Mike,
and I'm Stomp. Let's get started.
All right, but we already did get started, so we can just continue. So.
Too funny. Sorry about that.
No worries. That was good. So beer talk here. So why don't we start with you, Stomp? What are you drinking?
I'm having some of the leftover 7 Deadly Sins wine from when Pastor Ken was over talking about his books. It's a nice Cabernet. Yeah. How about you, Mike?
I drank one of these probably like 20 shows ago, but I'm drinking Love and Wrestling from Mayflower Brewing. I don't know. I have no idea, but it just works. I love wrestling, so I was a big pro wrestling geek when I was growing up in the 80s, so it's pretty good. It's a double IPA. So I'm back to my beer drinking habits.
I remember that. That was probably the Franconia Ridge episode that we loved so much.
It was a long time ago. So.
And how about the back row?
All right. This is Lindsay, and I am drinking Moat Mountain Brewing Company Bone Shaker Brown Ale.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Bone Shaker. Is there like a paragraph along with it to describe why they named it or anything like that? Bone Shaker.
Doesn't seem to be.
Okay. All right. And you, Miss Davis?
This...
That's a joke.
That is. It's my alter ego. Stone Brewery. It's like a Mexican chocolate tres leche stout.
Tres leche, Mike. Did you hear that?
It's fancy.
Impressive.
Yeah.
3 leches.
It's like 8.5%, so I will not be finishing this unless you want me to sleep on this couch tonight.
You can give it to Daphne. She might.
She was already sniffing at it a bit, but I don't know.
She wanted the leche.
Oh, the 9 leches. Yeah, that's pretty potent.
Pretty tasty.
We might have some drunk people here by the end of the night.
Why are these craft beers getting so potent? Is this like a competition amongst the breweries? I mean, seriously, some of the beers that they're making now are just ridiculous. We'll have to ask Steve.
I mean, the beers are expensive. They're like, it's $18 for, or, $14 to $18 for a 4-pack on average. So
yeah,
people probably make the calculation that if they're going to spend that kind of money, they want to get some alcohol for their money, I would suppose.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Makes sense. As opposed to taste or flavor.
Yeah, exactly. Although I do find with the IPAs, and I'm far removed from college, but back in college when we were drinking nothing but Busch Light, like you could drink a 6-pack of that before even going out, and I was drinking water, but like you could never do that. This is a double IPA. Like I could never just pound this down. I suppose some people can, but I certainly couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Double IPA. Good stuff.
Double IPA, yep. All right, Stomp. So recent hikes, you done anything?
Nope. Spicy Cheeto guy. I've done nothing. But it's just I've been too busy. And it's an interesting topic. Remember I told you about my issue where I get OCD about waiting for rescue calls, so I just sit around on the couch. I think I need an intervention. I really do. I know it sounds weird, but it's true. So I just sit around, watch TV, and wait for the call, and then all of a sudden it's Monday morning, and then I haven't hiked. I need help. Somebody help me.
Stomp prevention.
Right.
This is just a tough time of the year. So
I don't want to use that as an excuse, because I look at their Instagrams and these two are out all the time.
Oh, so I haven't been out lately.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Jen has.
Well, I had the week off, so I took advantage of it.
I saw your pictures. Did you go to Carrigain?
I did last week. I did Hancock's. I did Carrigan. And then this past Saturday, I did a Bonds Twins Traverse.
Awesome.
Which kicked my butt.
Yeah, I bet. Did you go solo or with anybody else?
I started out solo and then met up at Boncliffe with a guy that was named Kyle doing his grid, working on his grid. He's pretty far into it. And that worked out well. We ended up hiking together for a while. And I figured he would, at some point peel away, much faster hiker. But then my car spot on the other side fell through.
Oh, geez.
And Lindsay, who would let me borrow her Garmin inReach, I was able to message with this person. So I was going to need a ride, and I would have been able to figure it out, but he ended up giving me a ride back to exit 32. So
wow, living on the edge.
Yeah.
Did you have the plan A and plan B in your book in terms of just in case, or was this on the fly?
It was kind of on the fly. I mean, having the Garmin was kind of was my plan B, because I knew that I'd be able to.
That's awesome.
If the car spot fell through.
Did you know how to use the Garmin? Or did you figure that out on the way too?
No. Lindsay was kind enough to give me a tutorial. And it's somewhat similar to the GPS units that we use for SAR.
Yeah.
So that part of it, as far as, scrolling through the different pages, was very similar. Actually, a little more user-friendly than the ones we have for SAR. Wow.
Epic. So that's a lot of mileage. Lindsay, was Tecumseh the last thing that you did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So she... myself and the Teal Goat did Tecumseh. I mentioned that a couple shows ago, actually, but
yeah, because you had your umbrella. I felt like you were Mary Poppins hiking up the mountain.
It worked pretty well. I don't know.
Did you use an umbrella? I've always been curious of whether it's worth it or not.
It is. If you run hot, then you don't have to worry about the thick waterproof layer up on top, so you can wear a t-shirt, a wicking t-shirt, maybe a thin microfiber thermal underneath that if you need to, which I think I did that day, and then the umbrella does the rest. So I just breathe easier instead of wearing this monstrous Gore-Tex thing that doesn't breathe that well. It doesn't work very well when it's a hurricane.
Do you just hold the umbrella like Mary Poppins?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I feel like I saw Danielle.
Well, she was the one that got me into it.
Our friend Danielle, she's an umbrella person, but I feel like she has an umbrella that attaches to her shoulder strap or something.
Of course she does.
That was a thing. I don't know.
Of course she does. Well, she can get away with it. But she was the one that got me into umbrellas.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've used one a few times for short hikes.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Yeah. They work great. They don't work so good when you're going up Scar Ridge and there's a bushwhack when, thick scrub and stuff. They don't work out too hot for that. But
yeah. Me and my friend Tom were in the absolute monsoon going up the Mahoosic Arm. I don't think the umbrella would have helped.
No.
No.
But for Tecumseh, fair game. How about you, Mike? You still on Honeydew?
The Honeydew list is complete, so the stairs are done. I'm going to put an after picture on the Instagram account, but the stairs are done and the leaves are all picked up. So the only thing I did do related to hiking this week is I filled out my 4,000 footer patch application and my 52 with a view application. So it was good. But I was thinking back about the 4,000 footers, all those hikes were in 2016, 2017, 2018. And then I was doing the 52 with the views and the terrifying 25s in 19 and 20. So I haven't hiked. I mean, I've done a lot of repeats with my daughter and other friends, but that Cabot hike that we were talking about, for the audience, we've all hiked together one time on Mount Cabot. That was in November.
Yes.
Of 2018.
There's some serious
it must have been 2018.
I believe so.
And I looked
I think
it up
I
on
finished
Strava,
that
but
year.
Yeah. And if you had told me what the date was on that, I would have said that was the middle of February because of the snow that we were.
But it was November.
That day.
It was crazy snow.
It was crazy.
And we met at the summit.
At the actual summit. The actual summit. Let's be clear. That's so funny. People mess that one up all the time, including myself.
And I was psyched because I had been on SAR for maybe just that first year, and I wanted to get on the winter team.
Oh,
and I was like, all right, Stomp's going to get to see me in action. I can prove myself and not fall flat on my face in my snowshoes.
And meanwhile, there I am without snowshoes like a total idiot. Yeah, I was prepared.
Any club where Stomp has influence in deciding the membership, I don't want to join.
Well, thankfully,
You'll be surrounded by cats.
Yes.
Thankfully, I don't have too much influence.
Yeah. Well, Jen and Lindsay, before we get into sort of a deep dive in your backgrounds, we have done a couple of episodes. So we had Karen, we had Rebecca on to help us with winter hiking, and I've seen like a few social media posts around people that were like, I went up so-and-so and I learned a hard lesson, X, Y, and Z, typical stuff about not having the right gear or not having the right traction, things like that. So before we get into a lot of detail, I wanted to give, I guess, Jen, I'll start with you. Is there any sort of pearls of wisdom or great advice that you have around winter hiking that you'd want to share with the audience?
I think one of the really important things is you need to feel yourself differently than other times of the year. You burn a lot of calories and you lose a lot of fluid. So even if you don't feel like you're sweating a lot, you're losing fluid just breathing more so in the winter. So it's really important, I think, just to, whether it's every half hour, every hour, stop, make sure you're drinking, eat something if you don't think that you're hungry, because you may get to that point where your reserves are starting to get depleted and then you're starting to feel nauseous and you don't want to eat. And that starts to get into a dangerous situation where you are more prone to fatigue, more prone to hypothermia. So stop and take, people try to rush sometimes in winter. And also the kind of where you have your food accessible in your pack, because if it's really cold in different places, you don't want to be stopping and fumbling to get to your food. You need to be able to kind of eat on the fly, depending on what the conditions are.
Yeah, I agree. And I always find myself forcing myself to eat and drink in the winter just because I just don't get hungry and I don't get thirsty in the winter. It's just, maybe it's cold weather.
Yep. And I like to bring something hot to drink. I just think it makes me drink better.
Yeah. Do you heat your water before you go?
I do. If it's middle of winter. Or? Yeah. Usually, I'll usually bring a thermos to something hot that I know will stay hot pretty much the whole hike. I'll usually boil an Nalgene and have that in a little insulated cozy inside my pack. So that if it's, depending on the conditions, if it's, around 0 degrees, hopefully by the time I bust into that, it's not freezing cold. And then the one that I usually have like on my hip belt in its own separate koozie, whatever those are called.
Yeah, koozie, I guess.
I don't know that I'll boil that because I want to be able to drink it right away, but I'll put, hot water in just to make it a little easier to drink. I run cold, so I like to generally stay warmer.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm just the opposite. Now, you might want to tell Mike where you're from.
Where I'm from.
Originally, remember? Remember, yeah.
Well, I'm from New Hampshire.
Yeah, and?
Well, I'm not from that area, but I worked at the Belknap Mall for a stretch. like in high school.
Mike thinks it's Belknap still.
The Belknaps.
So I can't tell you how depressing it is when, because I pride myself like, I'm a New Englander. And like, because my in-laws have the house in Maine and then I spend so much time in New Hampshire, like people will say, oh, you're a man. But so I'll always be like, well, I've traveled more areas in New Hampshire than most people that even live in New Hampshire. And then I'll throw something out like, oh, the Belknaps. And then I get exposed for being a Flatlander. So.
That's great.
So, but Jen, I agree. Like the thermos with the hot liquid, I almost look at that as a 10 essentials for me because we had a hypothermia situation on an overnight with my friends, and to see how quickly my friend was able to snap out of his hypothermia situation with hot liquid was like an epiphany for me. So I've always brought a thermos full of like hot chocolate, and I usually will drink half of it when I get up top, and then I save another half of it just in case I run into somebody that's in trouble. Just to have that available, I think is huge, and that's the big piece of advice that I always pound into people as well about winter hiking.
Definitely.
Yeah, Lindsay, what about you?
Well, I'd have to say making sure you have some type of turnaround time. So whether it's if you don't make it up to the summit, make sure that you're prepared to just turn around because the winter is totally different. If you're breaking trail, if you're doing anything, we've had to turn around many times and just, you don't make it, mountain's not going anywhere.
Do you live by a hard deadline, like 2:00 or 3 p.m. or that type of thing, or just
In certain situations, if it's starting to get later, I mean, I don't go out there and say this is my deadline for this particular summit, but if it's starting to get later, we'll look at how long it's taken us and how much we may still have to go, and sometimes we'll just bail if people are starting to get tired. Or
Yeah, I tend to avoid the hard time deadlines and just look at the weather and mileage left. I'm not really concerned about the dark or the evening. That's fine with me. But because I sort of wonder about people that call it at 2:00 and just turn around. Like, what? Wait a minute. We can keep on going, right?
If you have headlamps, especially in the winter, it's really easy to hike out because if there's snow cover, you're going to see pretty well.
Yeah, sure.
And I think the more you hike in the dark, the more you enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
So we would hike in the dark all the time in the summer after work.
Yeah, Saturday I started in the dark, I ended in the dark.
You get used to it. It's great. Yeah.
And with SAR, we're doing it all the time.
Hell yeah. Yeah, search and rescue sees mostly afternoon and nighttime activity, it seems.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so Stump. So that's good. I want to keep focusing on this winter hiking topic just because I feel like there's a lot of people that are getting into it, and I was lucky enough to have people that were experienced winter hikers that I could hike with and learn from and ask a lot of questions. And I don't know if everybody has that opportunity. So the more wisdom we can share, the better it is. Hopefully people will stay safe out there so that you guys can have a nice boring winter.
Yeah, exactly.
So Stump can get off the couch.
Yeah, there we go. That's the solution. That's perfect.
Yeah. Now, so Jen, are you like that? Do you wait around for calls, or do you just sort of take the perspective that, like, if I'm available, I'm going to be out there? But
it's a mix. So during our busy season, I don't really like hiking on weekends anyway, just because there's way too many people around, and I'm fortunate to have days off in the week with my job. So usually it's time that we're catching up on stuff around the house on weekends, and then if calls come in, I'm there. But if an opportunity comes up, somebody wants to hike and I'm around, I'm not going to put it off just so that, in case I'm going to miss something on SAR, which we, Lindsay and myself and one other friend were out. We did Madison about 2 months ago.
Yep.
And as we were still like 3 hours out when the call came in, we're like, oh, guess we're not going to make this one.
We kind of thought we could make it at first.
We're like, we'll just respond. We're going to be late.
We definitely weren't going to make it.
Over late.
Yeah. That's actually, you just gave me a good idea. Like if you needed to do housework on a weekend, you could get everything prepped. And then start the work, and then have Lindsay call you, and then just tell your husband, like, okay, I gotta go, and then there you can go off to Reckless and have some beers.
Right.
Well, my problem is my partner's also on the team, so yeah,
it's not going to work out there.
Not going to work so much for me, but
it doesn't work. Oh, well, I tried. So. All right, Stomp. So you want to get into the first segment here, which is introductions, even though we've talked to them for like a half hour.
I know. Yeah, we'll jump through this a little bit, but let's go to Lindsay. So just say hi and tell us where you live, what you do in the area, what brought you to New Hampshire, your outdoor activities, all that good stuff.
All right.
Give us a little overview.
My name's Lindsay. I live in Holderness. I actually grew up around here in New Hampshire, in Campton, actually. So not far away. I grew up, my father worked for the Forest Service, so
nice.
Many outdoor activities, camping, hiking, things like that.
Yeah.
I think I got more into hiking a few years back. A group of us that hiked together all worked together, and we had a hiking group that I started.
Oh, you started it?
Yeah.
The founding member.
Founding member.
What was the name of the hiking group?
It was just the Mid-State Hiking Group. It was a non-committal hiking group.
Gotcha.
I was going hiking. You could come with me if you wanted.
all experience levels.
That's great.
Yeah. I got some guff for some of my ratings of the hikes, but I used the White Mountain Guide as my Bible. They thought I was being not hard. They thought everything was tough.
Yeah.
But But it was fun. We had a good time. And then that kind of kicked off to doing the 48 and things like that.
How many years did it take you to finish the 48?
2.
Wow, that's not bad. Yeah.
And I was out for 9 months.
Right.
Right. I wasn't pregnant though. Don't worry about that. It was an injury. So.
Oh, that's a bummer. Okay, so you're an avid hiker. I've had the opportunity to hike with you, which is cool. Very strong and fast. And how did you get turned on to search and rescue?
Jen, actually.
I recruited.
She did. She recruited a couple of us, and she tried to for a couple of years anyway. But I don't do well with bodily fluids, blood, vomit, things like that.
That's where Jen comes in.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't have to deal with that. I'll deal with that.
Mm-hmm. So I pretty much... Finally, she told me that I didn't have to have any medical background, which I don't.
Yeah, you really don't.
No. I don't know. She finally convinced me, and I'm very glad I decided to join.
Have you had any close calls on the trail?
Yes. So that one time I was out for 9 months, I had been hiking up the Ammonoosuc Ravine Trail with my friend Katie, and we decided to do a little off trail to a waterfall. On the way back out, I was stretching a little bit too much and dislocated my knee and damaged the cartilage in my knee.
Holy moly. Up by the gem pool?
A little bit further up.
Okay.
And
that's way up there.
Yeah, so it took us a little while to get down. She got me a couple sticks to use as my poles.
Wow.
I just didn't want search and rescue to come take me out.
So were you a SAR member at the time?
No, I wasn't, but I think Jen was.
Because we always joke about that. Like, you'll never see a SAR member call for help.
Yet.
They will crawl over broken glass before they call SAR. That's sort of the consensus from what I've experienced. Wow.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to get back down?
It took us a while, but we had started early, so we had all the time in the world.
Yeah. Interesting. So just one other person helping you down? Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Okay. Any questions, Mike? Before I move on to contestant number 2?
No, but I wouldn't hesitate to. I'm going to call. I want to ride in that wheelie thing.
You know what we should do is get Mason on that thing. He doesn't even need the litter.
The wheelie thing.
The wheeler.
wheel.
The wheeler for the litter.
Oh.
Well, then there are only specific hikes you can go on for that.
All right. I'll make sure I'm injured on one of those.
Just go to Welch Dickey.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Welch Dickey, that's your spot. It's so true. So, Jen. We've established that she's from the Belknaps. And
I'm not from the Belknaps.
Like you worked up there. Anyway.
Shut up, stop.
I worked in that
it's
area.
It's the Belknaps.
No, I grew up close to Concord.
Gotcha.
So.
And now you've moved up to...
And now I'm in Campton. I've
Okay.
been up here for about, 5 or 6 years.
God's country.
Yep.
It really is.
Love it.
It's great.
But I grew up hiking. My parents, they weren't avid hikers, but they liked to get us outside. So we would do things like, hike up in Franconia Notch, up the ridge. And
When you were younger?
Yeah, when I was younger.
Okay.
And,
did you do any other sports or anything like that? Or is it
I
always...
did track and field hockey. And I remember being up on the ridge with them. And it was hysterical because they just had gotten these brand new Gore-Tex jackets. Like, I think when Gore-Tex was kind of like new, maybe like EMS. I think EMS had just launched or something. It's probably been around for longer than that, but it was like the early 90s, and we're up on the ridge and got like soaked in this torrential downpour. Yeah. And they were nice and dry in their new Gore-Tex jackets, and I had this like cheapo nylon jacket on. I was soaked through, looked like a drowned rat. So, yeah, oops.
Good learning
and we were probably
moment.
hiking in jeans. I mean, I think back, I look at the pictures of us, and I'm like, what were we doing?
I know, isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
Looking back at the pictures, like 70s and 80s. And
yep.
Oh my goodness. So Lindsay, I meant to ask you, what do you do for work?
Well, I work at New Hampshire Electric Co-op.
Right. So listeners, you can get a discount if you just reach out to us. We'll set you up. And Jen, you are in the medical field,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I'm a registered nurse.
Okay.
You hike when you're a kid, and I think not for everybody, but sometimes you get away from it. So like I had moved to Boston and Massachusetts for about 9 years.
Yeah.
And when I moved back, did like little hikes, but not a lot of huge stuff. And then when I finally right before I moved up here for a few years before moving up here, I just decided that's really how I wanted to spend most of my free time. So started the 48s and got those done in a couple years, and then just kept kind of going. What
do you do now? Are you doing lists or just sort of going out for fun?
Everything. Yeah, I like lists. They keep me motivated. I don't know that I have the patience for a grid, so I'm doing a 4-season grid, basically.
Yeah.
Which I'm getting close to like 60-something% done on that. I'm working on hiking all the trails in the guide. I'm like 60-something% on that. 52 with a view, terrifying 25. Why not? They're fun. But really, and then sometimes it's just like, oh, what am I going to just do whatever?
Yeah.
Somebody else wants to do something that I've done 50 times. Who cares? It's just fun to be out.
Yeah, it is, right?
And our list of hiking halfway up to summits during SAR calls.
Yeah, that's actually sort of satisfying. I mean, in a weird way, you don't get a view, you don't get anything, but you get a hell of a workout.
Exactly.
That's really funny. So have you, before Search and Rescue, were you ever in a pickle? In a tough situation like Lindsay?
I think I was already on Search and Rescue, yeah, because my ankle sprain.
Oh.
That was like a year and a half ago.
What? Can you talk about that? Or
we were starting a bushwhack close by to where I live, so we were going to go up to Peaked. Is it Peaked Pond or Peaked Hill Mountain over by Peaked Hill Pond?
You were going to actually do the hill?
Yep, and then over the ridge to like East Kineo.
Oh, I didn't know those connected.
Yeah.
Because, Mike,
it's
this
beautiful.
is like it's the 20th anniversary of the Lord of the Rings. So if you want a Frodo and Sam adventure, you go up to Peaked Hill Pond and you can dive, get into these little old canoes that they leave there. You can do your Frodo and Sam thing across the pond and then bushwhack up to these two little peaks. But I had no idea that
we went
connected to
from
Kineo.
Ellsworth Pond.
Yes.
Because we're up on Ellsworth Hill, so we kind of went from that side. And
it makes sense.
I just poor footwear choice and sprained my ankle pretty bad. And then same thing, I'm not going to call. So luckily had two other people, one who's on SAR with me. And, same thing, made some sticks for support and hobbled half mile down and then waited while they went to get the car. So
interesting. Mike, just for future reference, we need to deep dive on the 93 line over to Rumney, essentially, and capture the whole Kineo region. We really haven't talked about that area. It's beautiful.
It's rugged.
It's dense. There's an experimental forest. It's just awesome.
Yeah, we were actually on the boundary of the Hubbard Brook Experimental Forest.
Okay,
for a while. It was really...
Mount Carr sort of connects to it, and Stinson if you wanted to. Yep. So that's a neat area.
Yeah, we've bushwhacked from our house to Stinson. It's pretty cool.
Oh, see?
It's very moosey.
Okay, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I've hiked Stinson because of the 52 with a view, but you're right. I haven't really done a lot outside of that in that area, so we'll have to do some field research. I
don't know if Carr was on 52 with a view and if it got delisted.
It was delisted, yeah. I think it was like on the original list, and it got delisted years ago. So I haven't been there.
One last question: how'd you get into SAR?
I actually read Where You'll Find Me.
Oh,
and I think I'd always been a little bit interested anyway. And then I read that and was just completely enthralled, like probably most people who have read that book. And one of the members on SAR, who was I think he's still on the board, worked with my partner. Mm-hmm. And I think the group hadn't been maybe taking members for a while, but then we're opening it up again and mentioned that they were looking for members. So we both signed up.
Wow. Incredible. That's a hell of a story. That's neat. I fell into it similarly, just by newspaper articles and things like that. Yeah. It's like, who are these epic, heroic people, like just doing this crazy stuff, like in the middle of the night?
Normal people.
I know. That's the coolest part about it. It's like, yeah. All right, Mike. Any questions on your side?
Yeah. So I guess to start off with, so we wanted to have you both on to get the perspective of, I feel, and again, I don't know, I have no insight on this. Like what I know about SAR is from what I've picked up from talking to different people, but my sense is that it does tend to be a more male-dominated activity. And I think that on the surface, you sort of think in terms of like, okay, well, you've got to lift these people down mountains, and that takes like, all the strength and whatnot. And I think even me, I'm not a big person, and obviously I live in Massachusetts, but if I did move to New Hampshire, like probably my biggest concern would be the amount of strength needed to sort of manage search and rescue and these carryouts. So I guess, Jen, I'd be curious, like was there any trepidation on your part when you decided to sign up around sort of the environment with it being a more male-dominated activity, or the fact that like there would be, if you ended up having to carry somebody out that was like 200 pounds or 300 pounds, like what was your thought about that?
It didn't really dawn on me to worry about that, I guess. I've always felt I'm a strong hiker. I like, at times doing bushwhacks and scrambles up slides. And so I felt like I had, pretty good strength going into it. As far as working in a male-dominated field, before I was a nurse, my background was a little more in criminal justice. And so I was kind of already used to some of that. And as far as feeling like if you needed to have thick skin for that. But I feel like the group that I'm with has been nothing but, open arms as far as, welcoming anybody onto the team as well, as long as they're fit and able to do what's required.
Got it. And Lindsay, did you have any concerns about that aspect of sort of male dominated and carrying people down mountains that would be tough physically for you?
I don't think I thought about it either. I just figured, other people do it, I can help too.
Got it.
And it hasn't been a problem at all. Our group is certainly, it's more like, it is kind of like a family. You get to know people pretty well, and everybody's got a great sense of humor, and it's been great.
Yep.
Yeah. What range is it like? And Stomp, you could answer this as well. I know you guys carry the litters. You use those sort of shoulder straps on the litters. Does it get to a point like if somebody reaches, and again, this is probably for everybody, but if you get to like 250, 300 pounds, does it just get to be impossible at a certain point that you got to carry these people out, or is there no limit to it?
I actually don't know off the top of my head what the weight limit is for the litter.
The litter, the titanium that we use is like 4 plus.
Yeah.
4. Yeah, that's not even an issue. It's titanium, so it's like my right hip. It ain't gonna break.
And with these extension handles that we've been able to add on the last year or so, you can get up to like 10 people on a litter. So in those situations, you can get enough muscle usually to make it work. You might be switching out more frequently. If it's a person that's 115 pounds, you might get 6 people on the litter, and they don't need a break for half a mile, depending on the terrain. It can kind of just keep going. But so every carry out is a little bit different in that regard, depending on the terrain, depending on how many people are there. Yep.
Got it. And then from the time that you started, Jen, until now, have you seen, and Stomp's talked about this a little bit around like sort of the growth in membership, at least in your specific organization, but overall within search and rescue, sort of across the state or across the region, have you seen any big changes as far as the membership or the volume of people involved in search and rescue? In
general, I think just more people are aware of it and are interested. And as far as, women being part of that group, I feel like when I started, this is, I'm finishing up year 4. I think I joined spring of 2018. And a lot of times I was the only woman going out on some of these carries. And I'm trying to think back. I can think probably about 4 or 5 women that were on the team then. Now we have like 20.
Oh, yeah. On calls, there may be 40 to 60% females on the responses. Even it's incredible.
Our last training, we did a search training a couple weekends ago, and I think we had more women turn up than men, so it's great to see that.
Yeah, I wonder why that is, but it's pretty fascinating. It's great.
We're still waiting.
Well, it sounds like, Jen, you've done a little bit of recruiting, right? Because you got Lindsay into it.
Lindsay and our friend Katie. Yep.
Solid crew.
Very solid.
Yeah, Lindsay, what about you? So how long have you been on search and rescue?
So I joined in 2000, so just over a year.
Okay. And have you, maybe you don't have enough perspective to see if anything has changed, but do you feel like there's, the team's getting bigger, or that you're seeing more and more volunteers?
There are a lot more volunteers and a lot of women we're just waiting for our first all-women carry-out to naturally happen.
It's been close.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And now we have more consistent members, which I think Stomp might have touched upon in previous episodes, but we have a more solid group of
regulars.
When I started, maybe 12 people would show up. Now, it's not uncommon to have 20 people show up, which is awesome. If it's a real grueling one.
Is there like a I think, Stomp, you've talked about this a little bit before, but is there like a perfect, like, do you always want to get like 24 to 28 people showing up to these things just so you have enough firepower to carry it down?
It used to be a minimum of 18. That was kind of the golden number, so that you have, now we don't always have just 6 on the litter, but before we had those extension handles, if we had 6 on a litter, then we had 3 teams that we could switch out. And you're not necessarily assigned to like a team. It's just then you at least can switch people out. And it might be that, if you only have 12 people, and so you have enough for 6 for each time that you're carrying, you're going to have to kind of switch out each time these set down. But when you have more people, you have a little more wiggle room. So if you've been carrying the longest, if you were one of the first people up and you started carrying and your arms are getting tired, and as more people are showing up, you might sit out for a couple rotations if your arms are starting to get tired.
I do have a comment about that. I think it's more fluid and dynamic than you would think. I think it really depends on sorry, I gotta laugh because Mike's image is frozen. Are you still there? Oh, there you are.
Oh, it is?
You look like Jack Nicholson at the end of The Shining, frozen in the maze. Like, that's Jesus. Interesting. So you're back with us, thank God. So I think it's more dynamic. I think it isn't like this cookie cutter thing that happens on every mission. Like, we need 12. We need 12. It's different every time. It really is. It depends on the weight of an individual. It depends on the heat versus cold. There are so many factors, so it can be really variable, and it depends also on the gear that may be available at the time too. More complicated than one would think.
Interesting. Now, Lindsay, I remember when Stomp was starting search and rescue, like we were talking and he was showing me like, here's the gear list and I got to go do this shakedown hike and all this stuff. And I sort of thought to myself, I was like, I'd be afraid to do that. Like, it sounds like a lot of work. And like, what if I bring like the wrong stuff and they yell at me, or what if, they don't like me for some reason? Can you talk about like your experience going through the process of joining? Was it as scary as I thought it was going to be when Stomp explained it to me?
Yeah, it was. I think that everybody, when they first start, look at the gear list, they put everything in their pack, and then they try to go up on the qualifying hike with everything in their pack. Oh, it's excruciating when you do that. But
yeah, same. They're all laughing at us.
Yeah, It's sort of twisted. It's just the way it is, the tradition, I suppose.
Until you get up to Greenleaf and the sun is set and it's freezing and everybody's scrambling to put their layers on, and then you're happy to have everything. So
yeah, right.
That's good. Now, Lindsay, do you still carry like a heavy pack with you, just out of habit now, or have you trimmed down your gear list?
I think I've always carried the heaviest pack, typically, out of the people that I hike with. I have a hard time leaving anything at home. It's hard for me to slim down. I want to make sure that I have everything I need. And in the summer, I carry so much water, and it's so heavy. But I am one of those people, I run hot. I need it.
Do you have a filter and stuff like that? Do you carry the filters?
I do.
I need to transition into that during the summers and do more recon about where the water sources are, because I carry the water too. And I used to be a hero, like, I'm just going to carry a couple gallons and like get a workout. And now it's just like way too much.
That's what I always told myself too. I'm just going to have a better workout.
Yeah. Training. I think I was built for SAR because I feel like I've always had the biggest pack. When I first started winter hiking, people would come along and like, where are you backpacking? It's like, nowhere. I'm just over the day.
This is my day hike.
Bog pond. That's awesome. So for the listeners, Bog Pond is like a 1.5 mile loop in Plymouth, and it's beautiful, absolutely stunning.
Quincy.
Quincy.
Yeah.
Quincy Bogs, excuse me. So it's a nice joke. There's no elevation, it's just flat. Yep. It just goes around a bog.
Yeah. Now, Lindsay, can you talk a little bit about time commitment? Are you sort of stuck at home on the weekends waiting for search and rescue calls, or like if anybody was thinking about joining a search and rescue team, can you give them a sense about sort of what the commitment is you're looking at?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's a huge commitment, really. It depends on how committed you want to be. I thankfully have a job that allows me to leave if a call comes in the middle of the week. Not everybody has that option, but at least on the weekends, it's usually sometime after 3. So if you're able to, make some of those commitments sometime after 3, then it's not too bad.
Yeah.
You'd just be out later. Yeah. So we do have requirements.
But every team's a little different with that, but
yeah, they're not difficult to meet.
No.
It's all about
Reasonable.
balance. I mean, you really need to balance a lot of stuff. And, if you go out for 3 days in a row and there's a 4th and you're, really exhausted, you almost need to be able to say, I'm not going to go on this one because I need to recharge so that I'm more available for the next one that comes along. Or it's my mom's 80th birthday party and I really can't miss this. You don't want to alienate your friends and family too much.
How do you feel about that, Stomp?
Well, I was just going to say, I've been doing some reading. I actually picked up The Last Traverse. I'm trying to make my way through it. And I can't remember the CO's name in the book, but it was so relatable. The CO is like reflecting back on his duty as a fish and game officer, saying, yeah, it got to the point where I was just sitting around all weekend waiting for a call to come in, and I didn't want to work out in the morning or hike in the morning because I was going to get burnt out for the call that was going to come in, and then I was missing dinner with the kids and blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh, that's so relatable. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's definitely about balance. It's super important. But for a lot of the members, I think, in the team, I think it's passion too. I think people are just passionate about search and rescue, and they're, no matter what state they're in, they're like, gotta go.
Yep.
Let's go.
Definitely.
Cool. Now, Jen, what would you say? What are some memorable moments for you being on a search and rescue team?
As far as memorable missions?
Yeah. Anything that you sort of sticks in your head is like, wow, that was probably the wildest or coolest mission that I've been on.
Probably the wildest was the Shining Rock overnight. That was like a couple Mays ago, and it was one of those seasons where we had a lot of snow still, and I think a lot of late snow. So there was rotting monorail, where the monorail was like, waist high.
Oh, yeah.
And I had been separated from some of my gear for a time, so I think Stomp actually had to help me out with some layers until my gear caught up with me.
I think we were all helping each other out for layers.
I remember Fish and Game saying it was one of the hardest carries they had done because it was just, you couldn't really slide the litter in sections. You couldn't carry it because you were just dragging it up, higher than your waist along this rotting monorail, and because you were down on either side of it. And we started up, what time did the call come in? Like 10?
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up having a call made to the New Hampshire Air Guard to have one of their Black Hawks sent. And the first time they tried to come up, they couldn't even get into the notch, but we had hunkered in a spot where there was open enough canopy that they could drop a litter down or a jungle penetrator down. And so we were just waiting for 2 hours?
Till sunrise. Yeah, till sunrise.
And it wasn't like middle of winter, but it was still down probably in the 40s, and it was misting, and you're not moving, you're getting cold. So, people are trying to move and do jumping jacks and up and down the trail to stay warm. And then when we heard that the helicopter couldn't make it in, okay, let's keep going down until we can get to the next spot. And at that point, the sun's coming up. And I think they picked her at like 7:30 in the morning. And when you're already cold and damp, and then, that rotor wash, that's real cold. You immediately watching your breath freeze. So I think we got back to the cars at like 9.
Yeah.
And I'd worked all day, and then I was out all night. I went home and took a shower, and I went to work.
That's heroic.
And I felt, trash.
epic.
Yeah.
And I think that harkens back to why it's important to carry all that stuff in your pack. Because I mean, you never know when you're going to be out all night,
Right?
Because things change. It's very dynamic.
Or you think, oh, I'm just going out to Welch Dickey, and then as you're carrying this person out, you get a call for another search.
Yeah.
And so you think what's going to be a small, turnaround time ends up being an all-night thing. So now I tend to carry a lot more gear in my car so that if things change, I can pack more stuff once I get to the trailhead or what staging area and know a little bit more about what might be happening.
Oh, yeah, the car tote.
Yep.
I have that.
Car tote on top?
No, it's in the back of my car, but it's a big tote and it has a lot of stuff in it. You never know. I'm prepared for everything.
Yep.
We could go.
Well, I'd be so thrown off if I was doing like a mission like that and I was like, okay, it's going to be 6 hours and then you end up being out all night. I would I don't think I would do that well, but I'm weak. So.
And one of the members' wives went and got breakfast sandwiches.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most amazing thing I've ever eaten. We get to back to staging and there's these, and I don't eat gluten, meat, or dairy, and I didn't care. I ate like 2 of those. Meat sausage, very glutenized. English muffins, they were delicious, and Dunkin' Donuts, and yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, anything else, Stomp, about search and rescue that you want to cover with Jen and Lindsay?
Well, I want to get Lindsay's favorite
Most
or
epic.
memorable mission to date.
I forgot about
there
that.
must be some, huh?
Oh, gosh. I'm sure there's some. I don't know. My most memorable mission, I don't know. There are too many that I was just trying to beat you in how many we went out on, but that didn't work out very well for me.
But you dodged a couple close puking incidents.
I did. Yeah. So we talked a little bit about how I am not okay with vomit. And I've actually been really lucky. So when you are carrying somebody, even if they aren't sick to begin with, they often get jostled around in the litter a lot. So sometimes people just get sick because they're being jostled. So far
True.
to date, I have been off of the litter all but one time. And the one time I was on the litter, I was at the feet. I was so lucky. I'm doing good. This is good for me because it's definitely not my thing.
You haven't been on a search, have you?
I haven't. We got called off.
Oh yeah,
I left work to go to that search and
out in Warren.
Got to the parking lot and said, "Oh, you can go back home."
Interesting. Yeah, it happens. They come in spurts.
Yeah.
Huh.
Now, when you're so how does it work to progress within a search and rescue team? Do you have to go on a certain number of missions before you get called in for a search, or do you have to do a certain number of missions before you get called in for a winter carry, or how does that all work?
You got to be a guy.
That's not even true.
Stomp.
Nobody believes that.
The whole purpose of this episode is to dispel that idiocy.
Thank you, Mike.
You got to be a rugged guy.
Cut this out. We got to edit this out.
Wow.
I'm sorry, Jen and Lindsay.
Edit.
I apologize.
It's a joke. Come on.
I'm sure every team is a little different. I don't think have any requirements for having to be on the team for so long or how many missions before going on to a search. I mean, I think I'd only been on the team a little over a year with the first couple searches and just kind of got thrown into it. Learn as you go a little bit. As far as winter, our specific team, they'd like to see people on for, a full season, so that we get to know them a little bit and, feel like it's somebody that's going to be responsible in a winterized setting. And so then, usually into their second year, they can apply for winter. And it doesn't mean that people won't get called out in winter, but as far as just, if it's above tree line or if it's, maybe more hazardous conditions, we have a smaller crew for that.
Yeah, obviously, I think I just go by the the media reports, and I track that information, and it does seem like particularly late November, December, January, and February, it does tend to be a slower period. Obviously, I would think that like there's a lot less room for error when it comes to people getting in trouble, but the volume of rescues just seems like it's a little bit lower in the winter anyway. So people are probably excited to get the call by February if they haven't seen much activity.
We miss our SAR family.
No, I got called in March, I think.
Yeah.
I was so excited. I was like, it's still snow. I can go.
I think one year we got called out to like Pine Bend. And by the time we got out there, like halfway across the Kank, she had already made her way with some Good Samaritan hikers that were helping her down. But we were all like, oh my gosh, it's so good to see everybody. Who wants to go get food? Little like mini SAR reunion.
Midwinter one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't get quite as many winter. Just seems like the people that go out in winter are a little more knowledgeable and prepared.
I remember that. I mean, driving to that mission, the snow piles on either side of the Kank had to be about 15 feet high.
Right.
And maybe 20 yards out from the end of the trail back at the trailhead, one of my snowshoes fell off, and I immediately post-holed up to my groin. I'm like, whoa! It was a heavy, heavy-duty snow that year. I think Northwoods Law covered that one, actually, that
really?
episode. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. That was a neat one, but the snow that year was really heavy.
Awesome. Well, I think the point here is that regardless of where you are, obviously we're sort of a New Hampshire base, but like whether you're in New England or anywhere else, we want to just sort of emphasize that anybody that's willing to volunteer, that has experience in the backcountry or hiking and is interested, step up and help out and volunteer, because it sounds like what I'm hearing here is that it's obviously helping out, doing the rescues is a key point, but I think even more what I'm hearing is that like there's a friendship factor here that is really rewarding around search and rescue. So you guys seem like you're even willing to put up with stomp. So that tells you that I think it really is.
Yeah. Says a lot.
It does say a lot. Yeah.
Do you guys does everyone get out and party in the slow seasons? You don't meet up and get drunk when you're not doing rescues?
Not really.
So much.
This is probably the majority of it right here.
I know, right?
But we did have some like climbing nights. Need to get those going again.
Yeah, Chris wants to actually.
Yeah.
He mentioned that.
Just to kind of keep going with stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, after a mission or something, we'll head out sometimes, but it is rare because usually people are just wiped, and everybody goes their own separate ways, geographically. So sometimes it's hard to get together, but it's not prohibited by any means. But there are certainly times of the season where, oh my God, we could get another call in about half an hour. So we take that into consideration.
I mean, I would just say that, if you're somebody who is kind of intrigued by search and rescue, or you wanted to do search and rescue, if you're an avid hiker, you're looking for a way to give back, don't be put off by thinking it's something that, these glorified people are doing. It's just everyday people. Like
and you don't have to have medical training.
You don't need to have medical training.
No.
You need to have a good head on your shoulders. You need to be able to, work well in a team and take care of yourself and not put yourself at risk, in that team setting, and be able to take directions. And really that's what we're looking for. So
what's your take on the impact of social media, good or bad, for search and rescue?
I hope it's good. I think it's a fine line. We don't want to, reveal too much about, certain carries maybe that people, might not want shared.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that people know what happens up in the Whites or anywhere.
How about for recruitment?
And for recruitment, I think, yeah. I mean, I like to put stuff on, once it's approved. If I can do it, there's a lot of people out there that can do it. So I don't want people to be afraid that, they couldn't or shouldn't think about joining because of XYZ.
Yeah. I mean, my personal take, is that it's been positive because, like, when we first came into it, there was that image of like these superheroes, like, oh my God, I can never do that.
Right. Like
it's not exactly true. It's like, it's experience and skill, and sure, you need those, but you can develop it as well. Right. And so I think social media has been great for that, in terms of making it more like this is sort of an every man, every woman activity that can be accessed by people on social media that hike, that enjoy hiking. I mean, we have people in there like 60s and 70s that come out and help out, and they do a fantastic job. Yeah. So it's open to everybody.
Even you, Stomp.
Before we move on, can we? How do we get a hold of you two? We'll put it in the show notes, but just so you can talk about it briefly.
I'm on Insta. This is Jen. It's one.great.life, and the great is GREYT because I have a Greyhound. And so life is great.
And here comes Lindsay.
Well, here's the thing with mine. Okay, everyone's laughing because
I love it.
Stomp really thinks that mine is inappropriate to say on a podcast. It's Cuddles McPuffy Pants.
In person, Mike.
Yep.
Here she is. I love that name. How did you get that name? It's the best.
So it's kind of a strange story. So
you don't have to go there if you don't want.
No, it's fine. It's appropriate. I was in Ireland with my family, and my brother is a travel blogger, and so he was trying to get me onto Instagram. And at the time, I didn't really know what it was. I'm like, what is this platform? What are we doing? I don't want people to know who I am. So I made up Cuddles McPuffy Pants. So nobody knew who I was.
It's genius. So the Mick is hearkening back to your heritage?
Yeah, to my Irish roots.
That's so great.
Yeah.
That is funny.
It's more kid-friendly than giant moon penis.
Yes.
I mean,
true.
come on.
Yeah, that is true.
We still haven't uncovered who was responsible for that. So
it's coming out you'll hear it Friday, but
okay.
Yeah, it's sort of funny. Great episode coming out this coming week, actually.
We give a little bit more backstory on it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, let's move on, I think. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, by the way, so Cuddles McPuffy Pants is on Insta. So good luck trying to find that. You have to spell it correctly.
No, we'll put the link in the show notes.
You better.
I mean, it's easy. It's how it sounds. It's no spaces altogether.
Okay. Moving on.
Yeah, that's funny. So Jen and Lindsay, so we're going to get into some search and rescue news. So you have both and I've noticed this has happened multiple times, but like if you're doing like a rescue on the ridge, whether you're going up Falling Waters or Old Bridle, like it seems like it's not uncommon at least a couple of times a year for you to be on a rescue, and then all of a sudden like you're either finished up with that rescue or you're in the middle of it, and then you find out like there's somebody's in trouble on Falling Waters. Next thing you know, like an hour later, you find out that somebody's in trouble on Old Bridle, and it becomes like chaos, right? So have you been on those missions where it's like 2 rescues for the price of 1?
Yes,
definitely,
both of us. Yep.
Or early morning and late night in the same day. Same. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, on Monadnock they had a 3-for-1. 3 rescues going on at one time.
Oh my goodness.
Did you hear about this one?
I think I did.
I didn't get the details.
I didn't get the details, no.
Let's check it out.
Yeah, so it was November 14th, which I don't know what day that is. I don't know my calendar.
I think it was a Sunday.
It's a Sunday. So 10:30 a.m. Fish and Game were notified that there was an injured hiker a short distance from the summit on the Spellman Trail. So this is the way that I go up. I'll typically go up Spellman. Me and my friends do our little secret mission to find an unnamed secret spot, and then we head up to the Pompelli Trail Junction, and it looks like this person had fallen and been injured. So 57-year-old female from New Hampshire suffered a fall and was in need of assistance. So she was assisted down the mountain by park staff and an off-duty member of the Jaffrey Ringe Memorial Ambulance Service to park headquarters. And I guess they arrived at 7:38. So 10:30, they got down at 7:38, and then she was transported to. That's a long carryout.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what was going on, but anyway, as that was going on, yeah. So her call came in at 10:30, and it says here that she wasn't out until 7:30 at night, because as her call was going on at around 12:45, they got a second call from about another hiker in need of assistance. So there was a 53-year-old guy from Massachusetts had made it to the summit and fell and suffered a serious lower leg injury. And he was at the very peak of the mountain. So this is two people coming off the peak of Monadnock in icy conditions, apparently, or at least cold enough that it was getting slippery. So there was park staff, Good Samaritans, and then Upper Valley Wilderness Response had made it up there. So they were assisting this person, and they were basically looking for DART to come in with a helicopter, and there was a landing zone that was established, and apparently they notified the rescuers that they weren't able to fly. So they figured the quickest way to get this person off the mountain would be to descend from the summit down the White Arrow Trail to the old toll road. So the rescue team endured wet, steep, and slippery trail conditions. Meanwhile, this other lady's getting taken down Spellman, I'm guessing. And then descending the White Arrow Trail with this guy at around 6 o'clock, yet another call came in about a third injured hiker. And this hiker had suffered a fall and was in need of assistance. So 43-year-old female from Massachusetts, apparently she's a frequent hiker on Mount Monadnock. She was out for an evening hike when she saw all the emergency vehicles, and she figured, I'm going to go try to help out. She had experience as a hiker. She'd been on there quite a few times, so she wanted to be a good Samaritan, and then she ascended the White Arrow Trail to the summit, noticed that nobody was at the summit, so she missed all the action. She went down the White Arrow Trail, and just before she gets to where the rescue teams were carrying this guy, she fell and injured herself. So then the four rescuers that were carrying this guy, meanwhile, on the other side of the mountain, they're still carrying this lady down as all this is going on.
It's amazing.
They had to leave the second guy and ascend back up the White Arrow Trail to help this third person. And apparently she had to be put into an ambulance on the top of the toll road. So I guess this guy... Oh, no, the third person, her condition was deteriorating, and she became the high priority to transport to the hospital. So she ended up getting down around 7:45. So long-ass day for Monadnock and the Upper Valley Search and Rescue Team. What a mess.
Kind of a circus.
I'm exhausted reading all that shit.
Yeah, let's hear it for Upper Valley.
Right.
Great team. Really skilled team.
Yeah.
And that's a busy mountain.
Yeah.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
It's probably in the top 3 of most frequented rescue spots anyway, don't you think? I mean, you hear about it all the time.
There are a lot of people that hike that mountain.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Although I've never done it. I've hiked Pack Monadnock a million times and never Monadnock.
I think I've hiked Monadnock once before I had my dogs. And since they don't allow dogs...
And that's why I've never hiked it.
There you go.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So is there a sign up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you have to get through a gate with a steward? Really?
I believe so, yeah. I did when I did it.
I don't think there
I think
was.
it's just because it's so popular, the amount of people, if there were dogs on it, it would just be like dog poo city.
Oh, sure. Wow.
Yeah, and it's like the main parking lot. You have to kind of walk right through the ranger station, so there's no way that you could sneak a dog through that area. I think there's other trailheads I've never been to that maybe you could, but you want to follow the rules. Unless you don't follow rules.
Sneak a basset hound.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But Monadnock, I mean, it's just like it's getting colder and it's getting slippery, and my guess is that there's probably not enough of like sort of ice to effectively even if they had microspikes, it probably would have been useless just because there's nothing to bite into. It's just surface. So
Reminds me of Mount Major. It's just...
Yes.
It's terrible. I hate it. So many people are unprepared, when they go up that or down it.
What's the size difference between Major and Monadnock?
Good question. Off the top of my head.
Oh, significant.
Like elevation wise.
Major. Yeah, I mean, major. I would be the equivalent of like Mount Willard, and then Monadnock would be the equivalent of going up like Mount Pierce. It's not a 4,000 footer, but it's pretty close.
Maybe like a Cardigan.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
You know,
Yeah,
3,000 something.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a great mountain. I love it. I mean, it's the mistake a lot of people make is they go up these like White Arrow and White Dot trails that are like, that's where everybody goes. I recommend if anybody's going to hike it, I'm probably screwing myself now, but I like to go up the Spellman Trail, sort of stay on that side, and it's a lot less crowded. It's steeper, but it's more of an adventure to go up on that side.
I will never hike it. It's just too far away. Seriously, it's like I'm so...
You're spoiled.
I know, you're trying to talk me into going there, Mike, but I probably will. But it is, like, you get so lazy living so close to the whites, you know?
You're awesome, Stomp. Good. All right, so the next one here is...
oh, boy.
I am jealous. I'm jealous. So we got to be serious here for a minute, because this is actually a sad story. So November 20th, Rockingham County officials in Brentwood, New Hampshire, which is down by me, that's like southern New Hampshire. So they got a call related to an individual floating in a kayak in the middle of the Exeter River. Brentwood police arrived on scene and observed the kayak floating in the river and saw a male individual lying down motionless inside the kayak. So the headline here is basically a hunter found deceased in Brentwood, and so this person was motionless and did not respond to their calls. So a member of the police department waded into the river to retrieve the kayak and observed what appeared to be a deceased male inside the boat. So EMS arrived on scene a short time later, and Fish and Game determined that it was a 79-year-old male whose name's being withheld that was deceased inside the kayak. So they don't really know any details. They're labeling this as a hunter. He was hunting in a kayak, I guess. I don't really know how that works, but they're investigating the incident, and it appears that he was, suffered a medical emergency at this point. So rest in peace, Hunter. But it sounds like he passed away doing sort of a cool activity, I guess. We always say that when somebody dies, like, at least they're doing something outdoors and doing something they love. So
right.
I don't know what it's worth.
Yeah, that's all you can say. It's the mystery of life.
Yeah.
79. At least he's out there doing it. That's a...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
See, that's what I just said. Stop. Everybody says that. They're like, well, at least he's doing what he loves.
Pay attention, Stop.
Well, no. I say that because there have been like some weird, like, young recoveries and stuff lately, and it's just like, oh, good. At least with this individual, they were in their latter years,
Yeah. So if you were going to pass away at an old age, Stomp, what activity would you be doing where you would say, okay, at least I'm doing what I love? Would it be mixing like DJ work
probably.
or something?
Probably. Yeah. I think I would love that. Yeah. Nice and loud. My eardrums will explode and I'll just crumple onto the ground. That'd be beautiful. With a glass of Cabernet.
I'm gonna keel over at 90, like over an Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, that's too funny. Yeah.
God, we have to cut this up. We're being insensitive.
I suppose.
Yeah.
How would you want to go, Jen?
Oh,
What's your best way to go?
This got morbid quickly.
I know, it really
Jen.
did. I don't know. Gosh, in my sleep, I guess.
And you? Cuddles?
Well, probably
Cuddling a McPuffy
probably
pants.
cuddling a lot of puppy dogs.
Right.
How's that?
Oh, all right.
Dog person, not a cat person.
I just wouldn't want to die like out hiking, because then somebody would have to like come out and get me.
What's that even mean? You would want to die hiking?
No, I said I wouldn't want to die hiking.
Oh, you wouldn't. I misheard you. Okay.
Yeah, because then, SAR team would have to like come out and get me, and
yeah, all right.
I'd feel bad.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I'm glad it wasn't the other way around. That would have been weird.
This is already weird. Yeah, let's cut all of this.
Yeah, this got really morbid quickly. But that's it for search and rescue news. So I've got a couple of history topics that I want to cover here. But before we get into that, I forgot. So we've been talking a little bit about the dogs here. So I have breaking news about dogs.
Oh, boy.
I've been on a mission to try to get Mrs. Mike to let me have a dog. And thus far, it's been no go. I've had a failed adoption. I've had a couple of stern arguments about why I should have a dog, and it hasn't worked. But I just found out that there's a rescue organization that is setting up shop in my town. And they're looking for fosters. So I'm going to talk to the missus when she gets back from Florida and see if she'll let me be a foster. And my thought is that if I can get a dog in the house for 2 days, and then I'm just not going to let them leave.
Mike, I'm headed down to Alabama to pick up a bloodhound. If there are other ones available, if you want one of those.
Oh my God! So I'm going to stay in touch with you too, because I may need to again. I'm going to switch to my move's going to be I need a foster. And then I'm just never going to let the foster leave.
Well, they are always looking for Greyhound fosters, I will say. They don't like to just adopt them straight out because they need to acclimate to a home environment. So
now, do you take the Greyhound hiking? You can't take the Greyhound hiking in the winter, right? It's too
not
cold.
Up into severe elevation. She just turned 12, so she's slowing down a little bit, but she's done half the 4,000 footers. And now, we might do things like Willard or if Welch Dickey is packed out really good, we might not do the whole loop, but I can get her up to at least the Welch side and back down. So it just depends on the conditions and how nice it is. But
and is she voice command with you? Are you able to keep her close by?
She's not completely voice command. I do hike off leash with her, but she doesn't stray. She doesn't run off into the woods. She's not lagging behind or ahead of me. She's kind of right with me the whole time.
She's Velcro.
She's pretty much Velcro, yeah. So she's a little, less skittish than she used to be. She was afraid of the woods when I first got her. But so then if I see other people with dogs coming, I'll leash her up. Yeah.
Was she a retired race dog?
Yeah. Yep, she raced in Florida. I've had 3 Greyhounds, and they've all hiked a little bit, but she's the one I hiked with the most.
Yeah. Well, when they come out of an adoption after they've been racing, are they generally in bad mental shape, or was she pretty easy to transition into retirement?
She was actually in pretty rough shape. She was probably in the worst of all of them. We didn't get her right away. She went through a pretty long foster process where she transitioned from Florida to New York State and then over to us. But it's usually, them getting used to, not sleeping in a crate, or sometimes they still do sleep in a crate if they're going to a home with other animals. That's why they like to foster them sometimes, to test them to see if they're, safe with other dogs or small dogs or cat safe. The one that I have now, she's very, low prey drive, so I don't have to worry about her. I've seen chipmunks run right across her feet camping, and she could care less. We have a cat. They tolerate each other. She doesn't chase after her. But other Greyhounds would do that. So, but it's just quirky nuances. They've never seen stairs and they have to be taught how to walk up and down stairs. And for some of them, it's really easy. And other ones, they kind of panic, and hardwood floors can be difficult. And my second Greyhound, who was a foster, and then we didn't, ever have her leave because she was too sweet. I lived on a lake at the time. We took her out to the dock. We walked to the end of the dock. She kept walking and fell straight off the dock and sunk 6 feet to the end of her leash because they don't realize sometimes that water is not a hard surface. It's things that they've never seen. And so
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's like Greyhound geometry.
Interesting. Now, is it just Florida now where they're legal to race?
There's still a few states. Florida, I think they've actually banned it, and I don't know if it's completely phased out. There were so many tracks down there that they were phasing it out just so that there weren't so many dogs coming out of, quote, retirement all at once. But I think Texas and Arizona and West Virginia are some states that still do it pretty heavily. So back when I was my first Greyhounds, they came out of New Hampshire and Massachusetts. They were still racing then. That's starting back in 2005. Yeah,
because I remember the Seabrook and Wonderland and Revere were pretty big. But has there been any unintended consequences with Greyhound racing being banned? Like, is it like to the point now where there's not a lot of greyhounds, or is the breed threatened because it's just not? There's no money in it for racing anymore?
I haven't heard that it's been threatened, just because the states that are still racing do have, quite a few. So they're actually hauling dogs out to other parts of the country to take the burden off the rescues in states that have kind of that overwhelming presence still of racing. And, maybe somewhere down the road things will change, but, there's people on both sides. I guess I'm probably pretty neutral, but, they just want a cozy place to snuggle up with people. They're really quite loving pets. They just love being around people.
Yeah, it's an interesting breed. I remember my neighbor had one for years, and it was a great dog. And I don't have a lot of experience with them, but it's interesting. I always kind of wondered, because it was like such a big deal when they canceled racing around here, and I think it was like an election or something where they voted on it, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's such an important industry, and there's going to be all these unintended consequences." But it just sounds like they've moved onto other states, and it hasn't really changed much, and it's probably not a great life for the dogs.
Right. But definitely not really a hiking dog per se. So back to that. They're not really built for hiking, but you can build them up to it. But if you're a hardcore hiker, probably not getting a greyhound.
What dogs are built for hiking?
Mutts I feel like are just really good,
Really?
But yeah.
That's funny.
But just,
I had an Australian Shepherd that was fabulous. He was pretty good at it.
Yeah, labs. Huskies. Some dogs like hiking in the winter better than others. I've seen little Chihuahuas hike in the ridge. I think it depends, but you gotta know.
Chihuahuas on the ridge.
I don't know, we got in this whole
Holy
topic.
moly.
Sorry, but
No, that's
you just
cool.
you gotta pay close attention.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I'm much more hypervigilant, I think, with the gear doing SAR now. But I think back when I hiked, real hardcore, doing like a half Prezi traverse with her, I didn't have any kind of rescue harness. And now I do. Now I just like doing the Quincy Bog. I bring it because if she slips and breaks a leg, I want to be able to carry her.
Yeah, there's like a whole separate kit for the dog.
Yep.
Are you using the mountain dog wear?
I sure am.
Yeah, interesting.
Hampshire made.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. We plug them occasionally.
Yeah.
Certainly did after the Odin show.
Yeah, and that Odin show was, I think, our second most popular episode, and I hope, I don't know for sure, but I'm hoping that sort of got the message out to carry extra gear for the dogs in case they need a rescue.
I think Stomp should do a round of 48 with Daphne, who's trying to get up in my mic right now.
She's so high energy. It's incredible.
She's out of control.
She's repositioning the mic to a better sound. She's just trying different tonal qualities.
She is.
Let's dive into some White Mountains history, shall we?
All right, Stomp. So we got a couple of history segments, and then we'll wrap it up here. So,
all right.
Stomp, how long do you think that they've been measuring the Pemi River flow? What year do you think that started?
I'm going to guess 1740.
Ooh.
No. That's a little. Calm down there. We weren't that technically
What kind of
advanced
technology did they have back then?
Yeah.
Well, it may not have been digital, but
yeah. So what I did is I pulled a couple of. There's a website that has those historic site markers. So one of the historic site markers is in Plymouth, and it marks where the stream gauging in New Hampshire started. So there's a site in Plymouth where it says this is the site of the longest continuous stream gauging in New Hampshire. So daily measurements of the level of the Pemi River were begun here in 1886 by the Locks and Canals Company of Lowell, Massachusetts, which controlled the flowage in the Merrimack River and its headwaters. So we got to tell our friend George that this stuff has been going on since 1886. They've been damming up these rivers. So in 1903, with funding from the state of New Hampshire, the U.S. Geological Survey began to measure the discharge of the river to determine available water power and the effects of the White Mountain deforestation. And the original gauge was on the abutment of a covered bridge on the site of this sign, which is in Plymouth. So the concrete gauging station, I guess they built around it, dates from 1926, but they've been, you know how we tell people, like, if there's river flow, always go on the PEMI site and make sure that you're getting a sense of what the discharge is. So they've been measuring this since 1886, which is pretty impressive.
That is impressive.
Yeah, I never knew that.
Do you have access to the other measurement stations that people should know about at the moment?
I don't have it at my fingertips, but I think if you Google like PEMI water level, you can get to, there's like a very detailed graphing site that you can go to that will tell you where the different gauges are located and what the discharge is. And I think we've talked about this, like if it's below 600 cubic feet, I think is the measurement, then typically you're good for water crossings. Once it gets above that, then
right,
you gotta be on the lookout.
Yep, it's just another tool to have if you're planning a hike around some water rain events.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, 1886. My next topic here is a guy named Ebenezer McIntosh Stomp. So we had covered this previously in the lost episode when my audio went out. So talk about Ebenezer. So this guy was Ebenezer. So he was an early rebel rouser in Boston. So he was part of the leaders in the Boston South End, and he became, I guess, the head of the South End gang. And he was I guess, part of the leadership of the Stamp Act protesters in 1765 and 1766. So I guess the British government passed the Stamp Act, and it pissed off the American colonists that were there. So he was part of the Sons of Liberty group they were basically dissidents that at the time were protesting a number of issues that the British Crown had implemented in Boston. So the reason I bring this guy up is that there's a historical marker in, I think, Haverhill, New Hampshire, dedicated to Ebenezer McIntosh. So this guy had led a riot in Boston, had been an early leader in the resistance in the Boston area, and eventually he got sort of out of favor in a number of these groups, and he ended up in debtor's prison, but he ended up hiking his way up to Haverhill, New Hampshire. So he had left Boston, settled in Haverhill, and I guess he joined the army for a couple of months and was involved in an attack on New York City. And then when he returned to Haverhill, he served as the town's sailor of leather, which I think is like the bootmaker, and eventually married a widow, had a few kids, and most of the family moved to Ohio. Ebenezer was an early backpacker, and he hiked his way to Ohio and then back to New Hampshire, and he was like 65 years old when he went on that trip. So he went all the way to Ohio from New Hampshire to see his kids, and then I guess he ended up back in Haverhill, but he didn't do so well later in life and ended up in the poor farm. But in recognition of his early actions as a early protester involved in the Boston Tea Party and other activities in Boston right around the Revolution, Ebenezer McIntosh has a nice green sign in Haverhill, New Hampshire dedicated to him. So it's pretty cool.
Where exactly?
I don't know exactly in Haverhill. I can I'll put the address of the site marker on the show notes, but I don't know exactly in Haverhill, New Hampshire where it is.
Was he a stream gauger?
He was not a stream gauger. He was a boot guy. He made the boots.
He did everything else, for God's sakes. Jeez, that's a hell of a resume.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to imagine back then, like if you every town needs a bootmaker,
because your feet get wet when you're gauging streams.
Exactly.
What I want to know is, what is exactly a poor farm? Do you know?
Oh, so I think what would go on is, I think back in the, like, you know how we have, like, you know, all these welfare services. I think that back in the days, it was based on these different settlements, and these towns would carve out, like, different areas where you would live in the poor farm. And I think mostly it's probably just a corner of the town where there's little plots of land and small shacks where they could live on, would be my guess, but I don't know.
I mean, that sounds legit.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
And the last one, Stomp, this is a site marker that is in Jefferson. And it's actually, we have gone to this site marker together when we hiked with Mark Lindeberg, and we did Owl's Head and Mount Martha. When you exit the Mount Martha, you come to a site marker for the Cherry Mountain Slide. And this talks about an incident that happened on July 10th, 1885 at 6 in the morning. There was a slide from Cherry Mountain's northern peak that left a deep gash from Owl's Head into the valley. So 1 million tons of boulders, trees, and mud loosened by a cloudburst rolled and tumbled a torturous 2 miles, destroying our Oscar Stanley's new home and his cattle barn and crops. So I guess there was a farmhand that ended up dying a few days later. Oscar's family survived, luckily, but I guess this, there was some people that had passed away. So there was some trains and carriages that brought people from far and wide to view the tragic sight. Right now, immediately when I read this, I was like, we got to find this slide. But apparently, it's almost disappeared through nature's healing process. But it would be interesting, Stomp, to go back up there and see if we can find the remnants of it.
That's such a steep area, especially from the owl side.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking we do some research using the technology on the mapping system that you had gotten the lead on that with Steve Smith.
Sure, LiDAR.
And then maybe if we can find where it is, we can do a little whack out to that area.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do that. I'll start doing some research.
Cool. All right. So I think that's it for this show. So Jen, Lindsay, thank you for coming. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
Just thanks for having us.
No, we enjoyed
being here.
Fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a good time. And I think they're ready to get away from crazy Daphne.
I kind of liked her.
Yeah.
Isn't she nuts?
Yeah, she's a little crazy, but it's okay.
She'll settle down.
She went into the crazy bitey phase for a little bit there.
But she'll nip you and then lick
nibble,
you.
Yes.
It's so sweet.
Yeah, like I understand why the executive producer may be like, I'm not dealing with this young crazy kid anymore.
Right. and good luck in your puppy endeavor.
Yeah, I'll keep you guys updated. If I do get one, I'm gonna name it Puppy McSnugglepants, and I'm gonna open up an Instagram account.
Perfect.
I love it. I love it.
Perfect.
Good stuff.
It can have its own Insta.
Yep.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered on today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information on SLASRpodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until next time, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words that describe this race. Do we all know what they are? Only one hill!
Here's Lieutenant James Neeland, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared, and I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.